Now this is a motor out of one of those bikes that I bought in that pile at the auction for $30 for the ones that were there. Well, I was monkeying around. This one, when I got it, I knew right away there was something wrong because you couldn't get it to turn over. The motor wouldn't spin. It was locked up. And I thought that was odd. These little Hondas are hard to kill, but this is a 100. And so I was not really concerned about it because I was really more interested in the 125s. That's what I'm working on. But I took this motor out of the frame because I needed the motor mount brackets. This is a 71, and I'm setting up the frame from a 72 SL, and they use the same brackets and stuff, and they've been stripped off that 72. So I needed those brackets, and as long as I had the motor out, I thought, well, I'll take a look and just see what kind of shape this was in. Or because to me, I was a little surprised that the motor was locked up, because when I pulled the cover off, you could get it to turn a little bit, and then clunk, 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 and I thought, oh, that's, I thought the bottom end was blown up, which is really unusual for a little Honda, because these things are really, the lower ends are about indestructible. It has like close to 5,000 miles on it, which is kind of the typical lifespan of those little Hondas. You see a lot of bikes that they get about that, or even up to 7,000, but I think that's about the most I've ever seen. And it usually isn't the motor that goes bad. The rest of the bike just falls apart from being abused, But these little motors, in particular, the bottom end, just last and last. Your top end can be wore out, blowing smoke and knocking, but the bottom end will still be good because they use huge bearings in them. Well, when I tore this one apart, I didn't have to go too deep, but I found out what the problem was. They had actually jumped the cam chain off of the sprocket. This is your cam chain adjuster, and evidently, in all the time they owned it, they never adjusted it. You can see there's wear here on the aluminum where the chain has been slapping over and hitting that aluminum. And there's a little guide down below here, little tin thing that's supposed to keep the chain on the sprockets, even if it gets really loose. Well, it got so loose that it actually bent that guide down. Well, then the chain just jumped over, got behind the rotor, got pinched in there, kind of kitty-wampus, and locked her up. But in tearing it down, like the cylinder's actually in good shape, the piston is in good shape, the bottom ring was stuck and I broke that getting it out, but it's got a good cam. Everything is actually in good shape, but they have thrown the cam chain. So I'm going to put this motor back together. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually split the cases, pull it completely apart. The good thing, when I took this open, there was full oil yet. There was no water in it, it was just oil. And there's a little screen in here. Instead of a filter, they have a little screen. And the only thing in the little screen, if you see big chunks of metal, you got a problem. But the only thing in the screen was little bits of aluminum from where it had chewed off of this piece here, which will do no harm, But it's just that the chain was so loose, it was slopping around in there until it finally got to the point where it could jump off. But, you're supposed to adjust them. But they didn't, because even the guide that it runs on is in good shape yet. The plastic, there's a plastic that keeps the tension on them. That's fine. It's all fine. It just, They just jumped the cam chain. But I want to replace all of the seals. And to do that, it's just as easy to split the whole motor. You know, it's not that big a deal. So, you know, new rings, I got them ordered already. That's $10. I got gasket set coming and a set of seals, and I can put it back together. I really hadn't intended on fixing this motor. I was more taking it apart out of curiosity. But I'll have to glass bead it here and grind the valves and clean this crap up. But it was good to see she had oil in her and not water. The point backing plate is a mess. So there's weird crud in there. And I'll have to get a new set of points for it. But all in all, that's a pretty good little motor. You know, for what I got into it. Yeah, there's just really no wear on it. So, that's a good find. And these 100s are both in the same frame as the 125. You know, they're like in the SL, the foot pegs, you know, the SL has down tubes on the frame. On CL and the CB, they don't. They bolt here and here, and the motor becomes part of your frame. Well, the SL, the dirt version, they actually ran a frame too. On the CB and the CL, they use the foot pegs mounted here. On the SL, they actually have a separate foot peg mount. But that's the kind of stuff I needed, you know, the bracketry for that other one to even put in the Lafon motor. But if I can fix this 100 for very little money, I'll go ahead and fix that. One thing that the temptation is strong, you know, I had forgot about all these old Hondas. They were held together with these Phillips screws, and you gotta have one of these impact drivers. And I couldn't find mine. I haven't used it for years because everything now comes with Allens on it. And the temptation would be to put Allens in because they're just a hateful thing. I hated them growing up. Every little bike we worked on, you end up taking a chisel and chiseling them square so you can put a regular screwdriver in them, or banging on them with a chisel to get them off. We never had one of these, but these are great devices. But on the old bike, you gotta have them things. Well, they're nice to have anyway, even if you got a stuck nut. But I've got a regular, you know, that DeWalt impact that I use that works fine. But for these Phillips, that's the only way to get them out of there. But she wasn't bad. You know, it was a little sludge. You know, you can see the sludge in the bottom, but there was oil in there. So she's repairable. But I was just surprised, you know, that it didn't turn over, like I say, because, man, you can torment them old Hondas. They are tough. But when you look at the size of the bearings in there, that's bigger than what's in my 500. You know, they just use a big-ass bottom end on these. Big, heavy flywheels. You know, they're a solidly built motor. Yeah, the rod is good. You know, surprising. But it was a good surprise. I really expected to find a rod broke, or, you know, just from the way it was acting, the way when I tried to turn it over, I did grinding and clunking, and I thought sure that rod was broke. Or the piston broke, or, you know, but no, just a cam chain off. And I don't know why. You know, it's not that hard to adjust them. The adjuster's just under there, but I guess if you don't know and you don't read the manual, you just run her till she stops. And evidently that's what they did on all their bikes. They'd buy a new bike and beat the snot out of it when it would quit working, throw it in a pile, and buy another new one. They must have been some hell raisers. You know, I think there was 3 or 4 boys that must have been close in age, and somebody was willing to spend money on motorcycles to keep them kids happy. But man, that's a heck of a way to do it, you know, because a bike like this, taken good care of, like the little CL, I mean, that's a nice shape. The one that I was driving the other day, it's a great little bike. But it feels so funny because they're a small frame. See, that's where the SL, especially that 72, there you got to the 21-inch front tire. So I'm patching that frame together using the best parts that I have, including parts off that Elsinore, because I can use the alloy rims. I've got a 18 for the back and a 21 for the front. That's already got an 18 alloy on the back. So I'll put the 21 that's on the Suzuki, I'll lace that rim to the Honda hub. So there'll be a little jockeying parts around here, but I can make a good frame. And I can put this 100 in, but my intention is to put the fan motor in, but I might stick this 100 in just to try it. I can always put it back in another frame if I wanted to make a little 100. You know, there ain't a lot of difference between the 100 and the 125. A lot of the parts are interchangeable even. Well, it's been years since I worked on one of these, though, and even then, I mean, we very seldom, when I was working at a Honda shop, they're just so solidly well built down there. We never really had to redo any work down there. I mean, once in a while, you'd have to bore a cylinder out, you know, if somebody tore it up, but as long as they run oil, and I've seen tormented where people trying to wreck, like the Honda 90s, drain all the oil out, fill them with the water, run them like that, run them full speed you know, all the time, just trying to see how much they'll take. They're indestructible. I saw where they ran one off like a 3-story building. They run it off the roof. They hit the pavement, they go down, kick it, and it starts up. You know, they're a tough little machine. But evidently, you have to adjust the cam chain. But that's just somebody didn't know to do that. You know, you're supposed to bring them in after so many hours, so many miles, and then you would adjust the valves and adjust the cam chain, and then you're good for quite a while. But there's an initial break-in period where after that you have to have them readjusted. And I got the feeling they bought them and they just rode them until they dropped, and never brought them in for service. But that was a good surprise. Now I just got to wait on parts for it and I can stick that back together. In the meantime, I'm working on that frame.